Online gaming has been around a lot longer than most people think, especially with PC gaming. But on November 5th, 2002, Xbox Live launched and it made the idea of online gaming boom in popularity, essentially changing the way we play video games forever, especially when Halo and Call of Duty jumped on the trend just a few years later. Unfortunately, as time went on, we began to notice a rising issue with the inclusion of voice chat, which is the ability to talk to your friends and others online like a phone call. Issues including toxicity involving racial and sexual slurs have become so problematic to the point where some people are actually beginning to dislike the feature or even removing themselves from any involvement with multiplayer games. Companies like Blizzard and Riot noticed this and took action by including a feature that would record in-game voice chat. So if anyone is reported for a toxicity in the match, someone from the development team can analyze the recordings and check if the toxicity is enough to deserve a punishment. The internet has been 50-50 on this. On one hand, you have players that are tired of dealing with extremely toxic teammates and wouldn't mind a system like this to make a game more enjoyable. On the other hand, you have players that feel like it's creepy to record their voices in games and may even consider it to be a breach of privacy. And understandably so, not everyone is a fan of that when they just want to play a video game after a long and hard day at work. Which brings us to the big question: is recording voice chat the way to go, or have game developers gone too far? Normally, I'd give you a straight up yes or no answer and explain the reasoning to it to not waste your guys' time, but I actually believe the answer isn't a clear yes or no answer, as it depends on the game and the developer's goal with it. One of the most used counter arguments to recording voice chat is the good old block, mute, kick feature most games have.
Remember there used to be these little tools called mute, block, and kick? What happened?
Guys, I have a little trick for dealing with toxic players. Now, a lot of people don't know this. If you click these buttons right here, you no longer have to hear them.
On paper, this should be enough, but this doesn't work out in every game. For example, a game like Call of Duty is known to be the most basic generic shooter on the market. Even though Call of Duty is arguably the biggest console esport on the market right now, most people don't take COD as seriously. The average Call of Duty player doesn't use comms to gain a competitive advantage. They use it to talk to friends, have conversations with random strangers, or in some cases, trash talk. Even in a game like Halo, the casual modes for it babies the players by giving them motion sensors so the player doesn't have to use voice chat to know where an opponent is. Since these games and mechanics aren't taken that seriously, you could join a casual match, mute everyone in the lobby, and still have an enjoyable experience by yourself. Even if the other players find other ways to be toxic like team killing and trapping players in corners, you could just leave the match and join another, meaning recording voice chat might not be required. What some people don't understand is that not every game is Call of Duty and Halo and can't be treated like so. Games like CSGO and Valorant heavily gravitate towards having a team-based competitive experience. Pretty much everything in these games are way more complex. Not only do you have to know how the weapons work and what each agent could do, but you also need to know the maps and their callouts, how much damage each weapon could do with and without armor, and how distance can affect the damage. This would be advanced knowledge for a game like Call of Duty, but this is the information you need to basically exist in a game like Counter-Strike or Valorant. You might think I'm overreacting, but I cannot tell you how many times I have lost matches simply because I got unlucky and was paired with 4 other players that didn't want to talk. No one gave callouts, no one could call out a flank, and I didn't know how much damage each player did to their opponents when retaking a site. These games, specifically without people talking, are a pain in the ass to deal with, and if you ask someone who plays these games often, they'll probably tell you the same thing. And this problem is 10 times worse if you're a woman. While both men and women face toxicity in games that both have the potential to be toxic to one another, it happens way more often with women. You cannot deny this. To put this into perspective, I rarely face a toxic player in my games, and when I do, it's usually just one guy I can mute with the 3 other players still giving callouts. My female friends basically have to deal with this on a daily basis, with entire groups ganging up on them, making each match a roll of the dice of whether or not simply breathing into the mic is worth the risk of dealing with fatherless teenage boys telling them to go make a sandwich, and then proceed to sabotage the gameplay. If they are unlucky and do get toxic teammates, they would have to mute them, but that means not getting comms or giving comms to help themselves win. I also forgot to mention that most competitive games won't let you leave the match without some kind of punishment, meaning they're stuck wasting their time in this 1v5 situation anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour and a half. That's a lot of time, and if women have to constantly gamble their time and sanity to enjoy these games, what's the point in playing them? They're just going to go back to whatever single player game they were playing before, or even quit the entire entire hobby. Some of my friends have resorted to not playing the game until they get a few teammates they trust to queue up with. While there's nothing wrong with that, that should be a loose recommendation and not a requirement to have a decent experience with the game. This could even affect the sales of the game, and let's not forget that video games are a business, so this is also important. The lower ranks in most competitive games consist of one of two kinds of people. One is the newcomers, the people that just play the game, they don't know how it works, and they're slowly trying to learn the game and get a higher rank. The other type of player is the kind that doesn't care about the game. They're just gonna throw, do whatever they want, and they're just not gonna care about winning or losing, but at the cost of other players' enjoyment with the game. If someone joins the game for the first time, starts at a lower rank like what most new players do, and starts with an experience of toxic players spitting out racial and sexual slurs, they're probably not going to want to play the game anymore and move on to something else. And if you're a businessman, you just lost a new customer. So for these competitive games, I actually think it's a good idea to record voice chat due to how important talking to other people can be. However, if game developers are going to record voice chat, they need to be clear on what is considered punishable, because you don't want players to be too afraid to drop a simple F-bomb. I think the good old Xbox Live trash talk is okay, so stuff like calling someone cancer, telling them to go touch grass and get a life while swearing should be fine. I think the trash talk should only be punishable when it gets into racial and sexual slurs, like dropping constant N-word bombs or telling my girlfriend they need to go make a sandwich or they'll sexually assault them with slurs related to it. Because there's a difference between a good trash talking session and being an asshole. You'd think grown adults would understand this by now, but I guess not. In the end, it just depends on the game. Games like Call of Duty shouldn't need it, but if it's a game that favors competitive integrity above anything else, it might actually make the game more enjoyable. Personally, I don't mind it. I've been playing with services like Faceit for years, which already records your voice chat, and I could care less if other games do it. I'm not saying any private information through party chat, so I don't have to worry about Riot raiding my house or taking all my money. They already do that with every Champions bundle that releases. But what are your guys' thoughts on developers recording voice chat? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Do you have any other suggestions? Leave them down in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like, subscribe for more content, and I'll talk to you all later.